That's an interesting question because, I mean, technically the Constitution even makes it specific about white males, or even, voting rights. Black people weren't even considered people. They were property, and they were 3/4 of a vote, and so if we were looking at those old documents, it's hard to say because they say things like, oh, anyone can come, the Statue of Liberty talks about bring us your poor, your wretched, your unwanted, basically, and we have this idea that America is about open door policy, but it's really not, and it hasn't been for a long time. There's been a lot of fights, and it's not even necessarily about color. It wasn't at first. The Irish and the Italians, they were not appreciated at first, and they were trying to keep them out too, but eventually it turned to color and other nationalities. But I mean, I think the country was founded on the idea that they just wanted to get away from religion, and then it went from there with slavery and color.
American, right? To me, that's a very fluid term. It can be redefined every time, and we've seen it been redefined in different points of history. If we look at right at the beginning of the Constitution, who was able to vote? Because when we think about what makes you a citizen of the country, the most powerful thing you have is being able to vote and to be able to dictate policy within a country. And if we just look at that fundamental right and how that affects American history or what it means to be an American, if we look at it constitutionally, right at the beginning, we can look at the founding of this nation. Who could vote? Rich white landowners. Then it gets transformed over time, right? And it's because people are fighting for these rights. Women had to fight for these rights, right? So it's one of those things where we as a country have always had the opportunity to redefine it. And I think that's what this immigration reform bill is going to really show us and tell us, is like, how are we going to define our citizenry? And like, how are we going to define citizenship and how it can be obtained within the next couple of years? I think that's why this is such a pivotal moment in our history, because it's another shift in how we can redefine it. Now, demographic-wise, people of color are outnumbering white Americans, and it's going to happen. Pretty soon, Latinos are going to be the #1 group demographically within our country. Statistically, it's going to happen. So it's another time we can redefine that, right? And I think that's why we see politicians, both Republican and Democrats, really targeting these folks, because they know these folks are coming. They're the ones who are going to be able to shift policy, and they need their votes. So if as we realize as people of color, if we realize that, then we really have a very strong opportunity to change policy within this year and define what it means to be an American, both constitutionally and both, I think, physically, through the media. That's what we're going to be looking at.
Again, it's hard to say. It's kind of like, it's what society believes. Man, that's a hard question, man. Because you have to go into, what is someone's identity? Is identity simply just national identity? The reason why people can say I'm Americans because my parents came here 40 years ago, and I happened to be born within the geographical borders of the United States. And does that make me American by birth? I mean, who's to say? I mean, nationalism in general is imagined. They're imagined communities, as Benedict Anderson said. So if you take away kind of all the politics, it's just being an American is simply what a group of people on this earth believe what American is. And I don't know if that answered your question, but to me, in general, nationalism, whether you're Filipino, whether American, is imagined. It's real in the sense that people will kill somebody because of nationalism, will kill somebody because they believe you're different. But again, it's still imagined. are Cebuanos considered Filipino because they were born within the geographical borders of the Philippines, or are Ifugao considered Filipino when they never submitted to Spanish or American colonialism? I mean, that's hard to say. And same goes to being an American. I mean, am I an American just because I was born here, but I have relatives who just came here 2 weeks ago? Does that make them American? Am I American just because I went to school here? I know plenty of people who were born and raised in the United States, but there are plenty of people who weren't born here or raised here, but know 10 times more American history than someone who was born here.